This episode is brought to you by the Girl Scouts of Colorado. And before you ask, my answer is Samoas. Well, maybe it's Thin Mints. Okay, sometimes it's those lemon ones. What's the lemon ones called? But the Girl Scouts are about more than just cookies. Girl Scouts of Colorado has opened the first in the nation Girl Scout Dream Lab in Denver's own Lowry neighborhood. There's a STEM lab, bouldering wall, a podcast booth, competition, a stage, and a boutique. The Dream Lab is open to anyone. So if you know a kid in pre-K or elementary school, drop in daily for all kinds of STEM, entrepreneurship, and outdoor type activities. Trefoils, are those the weird shortbread ones? Other than that, I love all Girl Scout cookies equally as a former seller. For more information, visit girlscoutsofcolorado.org/dreamlab. Lemon Ups, is that what they're called? They're newer. That's why it's like, I don't know exactly what they're called. I think you're right. Today on CityCast Denver, Dandy Dan's, the Diamond Cabaret, and of course, Shotgun Willie's. Our city is blessed with many iconic and storied strip clubs. But is the business of a strip club still viable in the Denver of 2023? We're talking economics, labor, regulations, and John Moran with Denver Post reporter Megan Ululani Boyenton. Today is Monday, August 7th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Megan Ululani Boyenton, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
And my producer, Paul, is here as well. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Megan. Hey, Bree.
So, Megan, are strip clubs a dying business?
I wouldn't say dying, but definitely changing. I've learned a lot about the strip club industry in writing this story, more than I thought that I would ever know.
Yeah? Where we at? Where are we at with these things?
Yeah, so the market size of the industry nationwide is actually shrinking. And so what I learned is that this is not recession-proof industry. For instance, back in 2008, like it got hit hard just like every other industry. It had to change during COVID. And now that we're kind of in like a shaky economic forecast, it's still kind of, it looks like dancers never really know, like what kind of money they're going to make when they go on stage.
So it's more about economics than maybe it seems at first? Because like I have to say that, COVID for sure, right? Things that were in person.
Right.
A strip club is that's what you go there for,
yeah.
To be in an experience with another person. So I could understand where that could be a downturn. But like, I guess when you say economics, it's like the business itself is shrinking. Is it because people aren't spending as much money?
Definitely.
Like customers aren't?
Yeah. In times of like economic uncertainty, I mean, visiting a strip club is one of the first things to go. So people aren't spending the cash that they used to. And then also there's the fact that like we're in a time where you can be in bed and watch OnlyFans or, porn. And so people feel like it's less convenient to go for that in-person experience unless they're part of like a bachelor or bachelorette party or just extroverts like that.
And like the bachelorette party, I would assume is not as big of a money maker for a dancer because it's like a stop that someone's making with their friends on the way to go do other things, you know? It's not like they're coming in. I mean, maybe you're coming in with a lot of money, but my experience with bachelor or bachelorette parties is it's the entertainment value. It's the last hurrah aspect of it versus let's go spend a lot of money at the strip
And they're
club.
usually younger. So a lot of dancers too kind of rely on regulars, and these regular customers will follow them to different clubs. And that's kind of how they know that they're going to make money that night. One dancer that I talked to said that she actually won't go into work unless she has like some regulars lined up who are going to be coming by, because then she knows that it'll be worth it. Because ultimately, strippers have to pay to be at the clubs. They have house fees. They have to tip out the staff. And so there are times when, yes, girls will bring home thousands of dollars, but then there are other times when they'll owe the house hundreds. And so they actually, went in, worked, and then leave like with $300 less.
Well, we're talking about the dancers a little bit and like what their choices are, and OnlyFans you mentioned. What allegiance or what purpose does the club serve for the dancers? Why do they need it?
Yeah, especially if they have to pay into it.
Yeah.
And it's not like they get benefits or time off or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's just like paying to work.
Yeah, ultimately it does come down to the money because, I mean, one of the dancers I talked to said she can make anywhere between $200 to $2,000. I think, too, like with social media and OnlyFans, you really have to like cultivate a following. And so that takes a lot of time. And sometimes, you know, when you're strapped for cash, it makes more sense to go in and, you know, you can leave with thousands of dollars.
The OnlyFans part I'm so curious about because I would assume if I was someone in the sex work world, I would way rather prefer that to especially because you're not paying out the house when you are running your OnlyFans. Is that like cutting into the strip club's revenues in general? Like, are more and more people turning to OnlyFans?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they're competing with. And I talked to a professor who specializes in covering the world of sex work over in Kentucky at Morehouse. She told me that, you know, there's just people, like you said, go to strip clubs for the in-person experience. So it's like they can't really compete with the OnlyFans or, you know, social media because like that's their business model. They can't change that business model. You know, if they start to try and do something online, then that's camming. So it's like they've just kind
of
different. Exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting. We'll see kind of, you know, I think her conclusion was that she thinks strip clubs are always going to be around, but are we going to have as many as we do now? Probably not. I mean, we don't have as many as we did in the 90s, and that was, you know, considered the golden age because it had gone through like this kind of resurgence where strip clubs are glamorized, where like a lot of businessmen were going. It was kind of looked at as a more glamorous activity than it was in the 70s, definitely. They said it was a little bit seedier back then.
Well, that kind of brings us back to the current moment where we're going through this new change of the post-pandemic period. And maybe we could talk about Denver, how it's impacting the market here. How big is it? How many clubs, how many people do you think are actually involved in this?
So that's a good question. From my own research, I was able to see that we have like more than a dozen clubs, but it was hard to pin down a number because I reached out to the Colorado Secretary of State to try and see how many strip clubs we have across the state. And they actually don't track the industry that a business operates in.
That was so interesting.
I know, the number or, you know, how many employees they have. And I was like, huh.
Or even just like assumptions you make from maybe a business name, because I know I think it's the LLC of shotguns is the Bavarian Inn shows up on your credit
really?
card.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what shows up on your
No
credit
way.
card. Yeah, because I think that's like a protection for their customers.
Yeah, definitely.
But I would also assume, how would you track that from an official state if it wasn't just like, Shotgun Willie's, Players Club, PTs, Scarlett's, Bavarian Inn? Is that a restaurant?
Exactly.
But I feel like you pointed out this detail that they don't track it. I feel like that's kind of important. Like, how do you regulate it? Doesn't it require special policies or like do lawmakers talk about this ever, this industry?
I mean, not that I've, you know, been able to find in my own research, but it does seem that there's some interest in, so what I had talked with the professor about is that a lot of times dancers can get screwed, you know, when it comes to their jobs because they're actually like not considered full-time employees. They're considered like contract workers or gig workers. And so it's like, and then they have to pay out the house. And so it's like, there are a lot of questions being raised in the Denver area about, you know, like, are they getting paid minimum wage? Are they being treated, you know, like, you know, full-time employees, you know, or
it's like tipping culture to the max.
Exactly.
Of like
it's
all
any
that
other
uncertainty.
labor force issue,
Exactly.
I think. That's what I really loved about your story, Megan, was you sort of demystified some of that, like you're saying, is like the misconception that sex work is you're rolling in money. Like, where in reality, it's more like a gig. It can be more like a gig worker experience where you have ups and downs, but you have zero security. You don't get a salary. You don't have health care. You don't get a tax refund at the end of the year, I know, as a freelance person.
Yeah.
So I think it was helpful to understand the precarious nature of this industry for the workers that do it. It's like any other labor industry.
Yeah.
There's maybe an exploitative angle to it.
This episode is brought to you by the Colorado Wine Board. because the wine community here is so much more than you might realize. We've got Bigsby's Folly and Infinite Monkey Theorem, sure, but there are urban wineries all across Denver and the Front Range. And oh my God, it's almost Palisade peach season. But did you know that Palisade is also home to some of the best wineries in the state? My producer Paul visited one year and will not shut up about how awesome it was. Colorado wineries produce all sorts of wine, so finding a label you love is easy, no matter where your adventure takes you. Discover it for yourself and support local winemakers at coloradowine.com. So we're back, and we wanted to talk to you because you wrote this story about strip clubs, and the economics part of it was really interesting to us because there's also this new business, or this Paul,
this big player,
talk
big
about
fish in a little pond.
This other
coming
like
in.
sort of Hooters style restaurant, which again
Have you
is
read
not
about
a strip
this?
club. But
you wrote about the company, RCI,
RCI
Hospitality Holdings.
Yeah.
Another one of these mysterious names, but with a lot of.
So I think it's for RCI is for Rick's Cabaret.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the biggest brand that they own of the
so
national
they own Rick's,
chains.
Scarlett's, and and I did read when I was like looking through their investor reports that they own Bombshells, right?
Yes.
Which is I think
apparently
that
huge in the South.
Yeah, I saw that it was pretty big in Texas.
But it's this World War II themed Hooters style restaurant and bar.
And
Sounds like boomers would go crazy for that.
That's what we were
that's
saying.
what we thought was like.
I know exactly who the target clientele is.
But like, is that a growing clientele? Because to me, that feels like a shrinking clientele.
I think that I would agree with that.
It's just a bizarre. And I do want to make sure we're not equating Hooters style that kind of a restaurant to a strip club. They're different, but I think that they probably cater in some sense to very similar crowds.
Well, it's owned by the same guy, and he
Yeah,
has his
true,
own theory
true.
about this, which is
Okay.
the thing that captured my imagination about this company. Was he said he is making this big buy in Denver by opening Bombshells across from the DCPA, from buying up that giant food hall that Troy Guard was doing down in Greenwood Village. He's spending like tens of millions of dollars because he says that the Denver market is flush with young single men who work in the tech industry.
Huh.
I know. That's what my response
What do
was.
you think about that?
I think that's interesting.
I think those are OnlyFans people. I don't think they're going to Bombshells.
Well, that would be my assumption
Yeah.
too, is it's like any other trend for younger folks, is if you can get it on an app or it's accessible in an easier way, you're probably going to do that.
Definitely, because we're
Unless-
more online. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, this sounds more like a place that like somebody like my dad's age would go to.
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. That's what I thought was weird. But also, I mean, we have to, I don't know how this plays into the experiential, like
Right.
this idea about experiences. Like
Millennials love experiences.
Meow is a immersive experience.
Right.
Like, is a strip club the immersive version of OnlyFans? Like, maybe, I don't know.
Could probably argue that. I just also, I mean, for him to say that this is like a market that's flush with people in the tech industry, I mean, look at all the cuts that the tech industry is making right now too. So it's like, I don't know. I guess we'll see how this business decision plays out. I'll definitely keep an eye on it at the Post.
It's kind of fun to see the way the web of the economy, the local economy, works like that together with tech and strip clubs like coming together. But it's all over about people and their values and what they want to spend their money on. It's so interesting.
But also, we've talked about with how the internet works is every hyper niche thing you want to access is there. So, and I would say strip clubs are on the whole, especially here in Colorado, very heteronormative.
Definitely.
And I wonder how much that is intersecting with young people's tastes and desires.
However, I was able to, so it was very difficult for me to get a hold of the managers of the clubs.
Of course.
Yeah, I can only imagine why they wouldn't want to talk to the press. But I live near Boys Town, which is a
a
gay
gay-
strip club.
Totally.
On South Broadway. And their owner was more than happy to kind of chat with me. And even he said that ever since the pandemic, it's been really tough to recover as a business, and they've been open for I think they're close to 2 decades now, and they cater to the LGBT community, so and it's tough for everybody.
Is there anything different about the business, the way they operate, other than the transparency, being open to talking to you?
I think what I noticed is I don't think their dancers make as much as like
I think in part because it's like a more of a regular
bar.
Yeah.
But like I've been there, and I know a lot of friends that go there, and we're not like going
Boys
for
Town.
we're not going
Right.
for a bachelorette party. We're going to hang out with other queer people.
Yeah.
So it's like, but also I think what's interesting is I'm not surprised that he talked to you, because I think the LGBTQ community is way more embracing
Definitely.
of sex work and the understanding of its intricacies within our communities versus the sort of high up in the castle owner of shotguns versus where the dancers are as sort of the gig workers. So I don't know. I didn't even, when we this whole time we've been talking about strip clubs, Boys Town did not once cross my mind, because it's like a more regular hangout place to me.
Yeah.
Well, there's one other local story that we were hoping to talk about that's kind of
Sean Moran.
hilarious. Do you know the Ja Morant Shotgun
Oh.
Willie's story,
Of course.
Megan? Does someone want to summarize it? Bree, maybe you could summarize
Well,
it.
he plays for the Memphis Grizzlies. He's a young star,
NBA
NBA.
high-flying superstar.
A very fast player, fun guy to watch, but he's had some really problematic off the court situations, and one of them involved him being in a strip club here in Denver and showing a gun, I believe, on Instagram Live. And it was annoying to me because it got wrapped up in the fact that he was in a strip club, which is like sort of not important to the story. But as a result of that, there were multiple incidents with him. I think 2 different ones with a situation with a gun. But Shotgun Willie's had a little bit of a moment on the national stage.
Yeah, that's
for
what
a
I'm
minute
interested in.
because-
Is this didn't happen in just any strip club. This is the iconic, and not Denver, Glendale.
And
Specifically Glendale Strip Club.
Did they turn over surveillance tape or something?
I don't know.
I
have
thought
to
I
look back
saw.
at the details.
I thought I saw a screenshot of the surveillance tape in one of the stories,
I
and there's
think-
just cash everywhere.
But that was also, I think that was one of the issues with this. Beyond that was betraying your customers' experience.
Oh, because Shotgun's sold out Ja.
Kinda, when you don't have to
You don't
do
sell
that.
out your high roller. I mean, he's bringing money into the
Well,
club
also
that
just
night.
why are you selling anyone out? This is your business. These
Yeah.
are your customers. Also, privacy for your dancers. I don't know. It was a whole.
They've been in hot water legally for a while.
Yeah, they have.
And
There's
I
been
think they're
multiple
probably
deaths
wanting
at
to
shotguns and-
maintain relationships.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was interesting
That would be
because
my guess.
for a moment people were like, "Oh, Denver has a crazy strip club," and it's like, "Well, yes."
But anyway, Megan, the question I have about this crazy situation is Ja, he's a high roller.
Mm-hmm.
How do the dancers see him? What is his role in the economy of strip clubs?
Is he a regular type of
Like,
customer they get?
The high roller.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
No, I think
figured.
that when they encounter a high roller, at least from the stories that I was told, it's usually maybe once, twice, 3 times in their career so far. And granted, 2 of the women that I talked to are 24, 26, so they're still pretty early on. One of them's 35, and I think she's probably seen more. But yeah, it's high rollers are pretty rare. Usually, it's a lot of people get their money from regulars. The regular customers that are loyal to them, and they know they're gonna get
So that movie picture that we have of the high roller is really a rarity.
definitely at Shotguns or the Bavarian Inn, whatever. it's alias.
I'm thinking more so than somewhere that's famous, has
Right.
Atlanta's,
right,
is it
maybe
Cheetah
somewhere in
Club or-
Miami.
Yeah, Las Vegas,
Well.
the places that are known.
That says something about Denver, that our iconic club doesn't have a lot of high rollers. Oh man, that's kind of a bummer actually. I want to live in a city where there are anyway.
Well, we might get there one day, Paul.
We might.
But I
might.
also
with
think
all
that
these young tech.
If only we could
that
get
feels so elusive to me. I'll be honest with you.
Megan Ululani Boynton.
Thanks for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
much
This
for
was
coming
fun.
in.
Thanks, guys, so much.
And here's what else Denverites are talking about: strip clubs. Because let's be honest, there's so much more to say. But we want to hear from you. We want to hear about your experiences at all the local spots. Your crazy Shotgun Willie stories are more than welcome. But we also want to hear about the real day-to-day, too. Have you ever worked at a strip club? Did you ever pop in for a lunch special and love the food? Call the Droopy Shotgun hotline at 720-500-5418 and leave us a voicemail with your name and neighborhood. And finally, Mayor Mike Johnston greenlit his first sweep of homeless encampments last Friday. He visited the camp at 22nd and Stout earlier in the week to meet with residents and presumably discuss the alleged rat infestation that he said made the sweep necessary. The mayor said he'd offer housing to residents of any swept camp, but that was not the case on Friday. More housing units are in the pipeline, though, according to Mayor Mike. We'll talk about it all tomorrow morning on the show. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed the show, why not take a minute to tell John Moran about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Denver, by texting Denver to 66866. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye. I have a natural mullet. That's the shape my hair wakes up in every morning. So I think I also would have done better in the 80s, Paul.